Crazy magic, swords, and a world where dragons reign supreme sounds pretty exciting to us, but do you have what it takes to jump into the world of Dragon's Dogma? We've been digging around to bring you some great information from various interviews on Dragon's Dogma 2, so here's all of the good parts that we think you need to know to be ready. Let's start off with some super juicy details. The world of Dragon's Dogma 2 is actually 4 times the size of the original game's map, and the developers are focusing on making the game feel even more dense. They're able to do that because of the RE engine, and the Dragon's Dogma team is working with the RE engine team to create what is going to be the first open world game in the engine. We all know that Dragon's Dogma 2 won't be a co-op game, but if you are looking for one, then it's no secret that we love Final Fantasy and MMOs. And a big thank you to today's sponsor, Square Enix. If you're looking for the perfect time to jump into a new MMO, Final Fantasy XIV actually has an updated free trial with its second expansion Stormblood now being added in. This means there's new raids, areas to explore, and additional quests to experience. All of this is wrapped up in an epic story. Also, you can pick up the Red Mage and my personal favorite class, the Samurai. With the upcoming Dawntrail expansion on the horizon, now is the perfect time to give it a go. You'll be able to create your own character, go out on fun quests, and take on challenging bosses in the form of raids and trials. If you want a break, the Gold Saucer is full of mini-games like Chocobo Racing and Triple Triad. And it isn't all about battles, because if you like crafting and gathering, there are so many options for you to do. That isn't just it, Final Fantasy XIV gets even bigger with the recent FanFest announcement of Final Fantasy XVI having a collaboration questline that will have you facing off against icons and earning your own toggle mount, as well as the introduction of a brand new class, Viper, which is for all of those that love destroying enemies with dual blades at close range. Combine this together with Dawntrail's new areas and quests and you will be on a massive adventure. So try Final Fantasy XIV for free now up to level 70 with no restrictions on game time with the link below. But in Dragon's Dogma 2, something you will do a lot in the game is combat, which we love. However, whether it be massive creatures or small mobs that you're fighting, within the interviews we got some clues on how the combat has been improved. So from a The Gamer article, they say, now when climbing an enemy, you can stand on any surface that isn't horizontal. Before, your stamina bar would quickly drain while climbing or clinging on an opponent, leading you to eventually falling off. But in Dragon's Dogma 2, your stamina can recover when you're standing on an enemy. If you are clinging on an enemy and they're not moving too much, you can simply stand on them. This will have a lot of applications and implications in combat because, hear me out, when you are standing, you then have access to your actual custom abilities, which you cannot do when you're clinging. And another exciting thing about the combat is the inclusion of a new weapon, and we know that there will be the new dual-bladed spear weapon, which is called the Duo Spear, that we actually got to see on the Mystic Spear Hand. We got a bit more detail on this from Izuna, where they say, there was a lot of very careful planning that went into creating the new weapon type, but the overall idea was to create actions that were not possible for other vocations. For example, Mystic Spear Hands can use magic in their offhand. Weapons with one blade require simple movements, however, because the Duo Spear has 2 blades, the moves look very different from other vocations, and of course looks very cool, which it definitely does look cool. This is an amazing looking new vocation that personally I can't wait to try. Something that we also got to see in the gameplay demo that we played ourselves was camping, which is another new feature being added into the game, and during our hands-on time we experienced this and got to see some cooking in the camping too. To do this you needed a camping kit and a location where you're able to set up a camp, which is a place where both you and your pawns can rest. However, something that both shocked us in the demo that we played and the interviewer in the Gamer article was just how realistic the food looked while you cooked it. I mean, just look at this food and the detail on it. This was quite a surprise to see something like this in Dragon's Dogma 2, especially in that short demo that we got to play. It looks like it could be something out of Monster Hunter World when you're making food. There was a lot of detail that went into that, but personally, as a bit of a foodie, I'm all here for it. I'm not sure I've seen better food in a game yet, but if there is a game that has better looking food than this, tell us what it is in the comments below. One of the more common questions across our other Dragon's Dogma videos is if the world is the same one that existed in Dragon's Dogma 1. Well, the developers have confirmed that the 2 games do share the same world setting, but they are different in that they're considering them as parallel worlds. So, the narrative for the first game won't impact the sequel, but the story itself will have common elements such as the Red Dragon dragon, the Arisen, and the pawns. This makes sense when learning about what the team's primary goal for the game is. The main goal for the team when making Dragon Dogma 2 was to build the game that they always wanted to but couldn't due to technical restrictions of the platforms when the original game released. Hideaki Itsuno, I think that's how you say it, I'm really bad at names, went into more detail about this when he was talking to The Times, saying, "We mostly just wanted to take things that we couldn't achieve in Dragon's Dogma at the time when it came out, whether it be just the lack of time or pushing the limits of the hardware that was around at the time. So the main inspiration was sort of ourselves, and finally being able to achieve what we wanted to on this current generation of consoles." There have been a lot of people remarking on why the game looks very similar to the original in terms of its design and graphical art style, and it seems very intentional. This may be disappointing to some that were looking for more innovation in different ways, but if you love the original game, then you're going to be in for a treat, because this is kind of like a remake and sequel all in one, similar to Final Fantasy VII Remake. And I will say, personally, I love the charm and style and how it's kept true to the original, so fans of the original are going to feel right at home in this sequel. But the original game isn't the only game that the team are now taking inspiration from. With a much larger and open world, the team wanted to make it feel much more alive, like a living, breathing world, so they've actually taken inspiration from GTA, and here is what Hideaki Itsuno had to say about it. "If I had to pick one other game that came out in the meantime, I would actually say GTA 5. I kind of admired how they were able to create a world in which it really felt like the NPCs were going about their lives independently of the player. All kinds of interesting emergent behavior could happen, whether you were exploring the city, and all kinds of weird accidents felt like it would happen whether you were there or not. That feeling of a living world is something I've definitely tried to achieve in Dragon's Dogma 2. It's absolutely awesome that they're taking the time to add in that emergent behavior to the game, because it's super fun to have those random crazy encounters, and sometimes they produce some hilarious videos which we have seen in games like Red Dead Redemption, GTA, and even the latest Zelda. Something you may have missed if you haven't been following every piece of news on Dragon's Dogma 2 is that there is a new species in the game called the Beastren, and this is something that was cut from the original game but was concepted, so the team wanted to include them this time around. Supposedly, the Beastren will play a big part in the game's story, and they will have their own nation as well as cultural beliefs. For those of you wondering if there are any differences between humans and Beastrens, the developers have went into a little more detail on this, where they say, "As we showed in the recent gameplay footage, both humans and Beastren have their own kingdoms and homeland. While there are no huge differences between choosing either, story-wise, players will notice that your character will be perceived differently depending on where you are from. As a human in a Beastren nation, or a Beastren in human nations, these differences will be noticeable. There's no better or right choice, but players will want to consider it carefully when creating their Arisen. So ultimately, we should be safe to choose either a human or Beastren for our character without feeling like you're missing out, but there will be implications of it. We are interested to know what species you are thinking about picking for your first playthrough. Will you jump into a traditional human or try out the new Beastren race? We have also already mentioned that the developers wanted the world to feel more lived in, and one of the ways they're achieving that is by how you interact with your pawns. Not only has the AI been enhanced for the sequel, but they are going to be a bit more talkative, as their development team wanted them to react more often to the player's actions, which is an interesting choice because if you have played the original, sometimes you'll notice that they just don't shut up. Hopefully they can find a balance between this being quite nice and not very annoying. If the NPC characters are just repeatedly and quickly spewing off the same voice lines over and over, like in the original, then it's going to get old pretty quick. And for those of you wondering if there's a relationship system in the game, the developers have confirmed that it will be making a return to the game, and this time around will be enhanced with new elements added into it. They didn't go into any further details, but they did remark that they liked it a lot and felt like it was one of the hidden themes of Dragon's Dogma.